And just to give you guys a little background on me, my name is Rona Graf, and I own GraceBlu Interior Design, and I started the firm in 2007. So I've had the company now for 13 years, and it's been an interesting ride of 13 years. It's a huge learning experience, but my background, actually, I never started out in interior design. I went to the University of Pittsburgh and earned my undergraduate degree in interdisciplinary studies because I actually started out in nutrition and dietetics. I wanted to be in sports nutrition and loved the whole aspect of health and nutrition. And I quickly realized that science wasn't my favorite subject when I got to university. So I had to shift gears a little bit, and I decided what did I want to do is I actually always wanted to be a teacher. So I actually earned my degree in interdisciplinary studies, and I created my own major with a focus towards going into graduate school for teaching. And so I went into a 5th-year teaching program, and I earned my master's degree in the arts of teaching. So I actually graduated with a master's degree from the University of Pittsburgh in teaching, and I taught 6th grade when I moved to California. So fast forward in 2000, I'm 22 years old. You guys can do the math to see how old I am now. I started teaching in Newport Beach, and I was a 6th grade teacher, and I love teaching. However, I saw that my priorities with teaching didn't really align with the public school system. I felt like the public school system where I was teaching didn't value the whole learning student. It was really focused on taking tests and the bottom line, and we didn't foster the kids as a whole, like what they're good at. We only kind of catered towards those, good students and get good grades and go to college and get a good job and then be a great employee. That kind of went against everything I felt and I was passionate about, because we need every type of student there is. We need those kids that are good with their hands. I used to use the example, we're sitting in this school, we're sitting in this room. Well, it took every type of person to actually build the school. It took the laborer to physically build the school. It took the engineer, the architect that was good with numbers and understanding that. It took the designer to pick out all the selections. It took every single type of person to build the school. And I thought in education, we weren't reaching out to all of these kids that had all of these different skills. So I'm a firm believer that you should really focus on what you feel that you're great at and what your gift is, because that is what's going to make you the happiest. And money doesn't make you happy, guys. It helps, but it's not the end all be all to making you happy. I feel like what I do now, after teaching 5 years in the education system, my principal loved me, and I did all these really cool things with the kids, and I taught them, and we had great resources, and I tapped into those resources. We had a parent that was a National Geographic underwater filmographer. And the kids would want to know, why do we need to know math? Why do we need to know geometry? Why do we need to know science? Well, let me explain to you why. Here's a National Geographic underwater filmographer, and he's telling you, you need to be able to calculate the distance in the cage underwater from your camera angle to the shark that you're filming and figure out the geometry of that so that you can get the best angle mathematically. Oh, okay. That's an example of why you need to know math. It's 6th grade math. Everything you need to know, you're learning right now, but you're not applying it to the real world. So fast forward, we did all these really cool things like this. I tapped into a lot of the parents that worked in the real life world, had them talk about it to the kids. My principal saw me as this outside the box thinker. She literally pulled me into her office and said, I love you, you're awesome, but I need you to think inside the box. That was the day I quit teaching. So I decided, the whole reason I went into the teaching field is I wanted to reach every type of kid and every type of learner and bring out the best in them and see what they were good at and foster that. Go to that direction and work on that. That's what your gift is. Every one of you are given a gift. Every one of you could be given a gift in a different area. And talking about interior design, I went back to school because I knew deep down, one, I was an entrepreneur. I knew that as a little kid. I started thinking about, what did I do as a little kid? Well, as a little kid, I was constantly painting rocks. I was constantly picking flowers, putting them together, selling them. I was going door to door, wrapping flower arrangements, painting my room, decorating, and making, like I was a salesperson. I'm like, okay, that's what I did as a kid. I painted my room. I rearranged things. I was constantly figuring out what looks best. I was constantly making things look good. And it wasn't until I bought my first home when I was 25 years old and I started decorating it, and I was not happy with teaching. And my best friend said to me, why aren't you an interior designer? Look at your house. It looks like a model home. Because that's what made me happy. Those are the things that made me happy. And that's what I said, oh yeah, why am I not doing this for a living? My grandmother growing up owned a furniture store. So I was always surrounded by fabrics and carpet samples and draperies and watching them upholster furniture. And I didn't realize at the time that that really influenced me, because I would take all of her scraps of fabric, I would cut them up, I would use my carpet samples, and I would literally decorate tree houses and go sit in tree houses and have them all decked out in furniture and fabrics. So it took me until I was about 25, 26 years old to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So don't feel bad if you end up changing careers. It's not that big of a deal. You will find your path, and everything that you do will guide you to where you need to be. I have a master's degree. I have a lot of student loans with that, but everything I did when I was teaching and working with parents prepped me to work with clients in this field that I'm in, which is a lot. It's a lot of the same, but it's just a different skill set, kind of used in a different way. So fast forward, I went to design school at 26 at the Interior Designers Institute in Newport Beach. And I was kind of down on myself. Oh my gosh, I'm starting over. I'm so behind. And so many of the people at the time looked at me like I was crazy, because they were like, you're 26 years old. That's not that old. To me, I was always kind of a go-getter and very much a self-starter. So to me, I was behind. In hindsight, I wasn't behind. I actually learned a lot from what I did in teaching. So I earned my degree in interior design. I loved it, loved every minute of it. I excelled. I did great. I will be honest with you, interior design school was more challenging than my graduate school program. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of math. It was a lot of drawing. It was a lot of calculation. It was a lot of just intense work on projects, which is kind of what I do now. But I will say this, I'm a firm believer in education, and I feel that it's important. Will I hire someone without a degree? Probably not. Can you start your own business without an interior design degree? Yes. Unfortunately, right now there's a big legislation between the American Institution of Architects versus the American Society of Interior Designers, and they're battling. And the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects, doesn't want interior designers to be able to have the legality to stamp their own drawings and submit them to get permitted. So they're battling right now. So that's a big reason why there's no legislation or there's no registration of interior designers. There's a few different other states have a certified interior design program. Even though I have design background and I have education in schooling, I have no more right than Susie Q homemaker who decides one day to be a designer. Does that bother me? A little bit, because I actually paid a lot of money and put a lot of work into going into school to get a degree. Yet the lady next door who decides one day she wants to be an interior designer picks up and starts a business and puts her name on and writes interior design, and all of a sudden she's got a great Instagram page and she now is an interior designer. That's different than most fields. You can't just decide you want to be a doctor one day. You're not going to go practice being a doctor, right? So that's why they're battling right now, because the architects feel that if we get those rights, the architects will lose power and lose business, because then people will find them not as important as interior designers. But we all have our roles. We complement. Architects, interior designers, and builders and the client are part of this, circle that needs to work together. My job is not to do what an architect is. My job is to build, and I love this, one of my teachers in design school actually said this, the interior designer builds the shoe, the architect builds the shoe box. Most people are buying kind of the shoe, right? So we do have a very important job. We are building what you purchase. We are building what you see inside. So the answer to someone's Trunk's question, right? Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. He asked, do you need a design degree? Do you need a degree? Technically, no. Is it important if you want to get hired somewhere? Yes, I think so. I wouldn't hire anybody without a design degree, because you're learning a lot of skills in that field that you need to know. A lot of people who are self-taught don't actually have CAD skills, which is AutoCAD, which we use a lot, SketchUp, all the technical programs that we use. Do you kind of need to have a little bit of a knack or a good eye to be an interior designer? Absolutely. That really can't be taught. Believe me, I went to school with a lot of people that didn't really have a good eye. And I'm like, why are you in this field? But maybe their skill set is more technical. Maybe they're great CAD designers, and a lot of that is something you need to know how to do. So I think I answered that. And then I asked what inspired me. What inspired me is I realized that I had this innate desire to make things pretty, make things beautiful, but I also was very technical. I like the idea of building things. I like to know how to do things. My grandmother owned a furniture store, so that influenced me. I was surrounded by it, and I was always kind of making things look better. And then when I owned my first house, I took so much pride into making it look really beautiful. People were like, why aren't you doing this for a business? Or why aren't you doing this for your work? And I'm like, yeah, that's what makes me happy. That's what I'm going to do. So moving along, I always knew not everybody is a business owner. I always knew since I was a little kid, going back to my entrepreneurial spirit of selling flowers and selling newspapers and selling anything I could. I painted things, I baked cakes. I was always very entrepreneurial. Not everybody is, and that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. Everybody has their role and personality. You have to pay attention to your personality. Even in my business with my employees, I have an interior designer who's my lead designer, and she has been in the industry for over 10 years. And she said to me, I've seen and I've been around enough businesses that I don't want to own the interior design business. I want to be a designer. And this is a great book for all of you to read if you're ever thinking about becoming some sort of entrepreneur or business owner. It's called The E-Myth. It's a great book, and I highly suggest reading it before you even think about starting a business of any kind. It teaches you so much. It's called The E-Myth. It's about the entrepreneurial myth. Not everybody, not every personality is an entrepreneur. There are 3 types of people that you need to run a business. You need the entrepreneur. That's the big idea picture. That's the person that comes up with and sees the whole idea. Then there's the technician. Most people are technicians. Most people are really good at what they do, and that's when they decide they have this E-myth. They have this entrepreneurial moment going, hey, I really like to bake pies. I'm such a good pie maker. And everybody tells, oh, your pies are great. Your pies are great. Why don't you open a business? Okay, well, then and they use this example in the book, Susie Homemaker, who makes pies. She says, okay, I'm going to start a pie business. Well, it becomes so far removed from making pies. Now she's doing everything else but making pies. She has to hire people to help her make pies. She's now running the business. She's now ordering supplies. She's now doing payroll. She's now doing HR. She's doing all the things to be the entrepreneur to see that the business grows, but she's not making pies. That's what she loved to do. She realizes, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a technician. I should just stick to making pies. So there's that person, there's the technician, there's the entrepreneur, and there's the manager. Those are the 3 people that you need, or 3 components in a successful business. The manager oversees all of everybody. The manager keeps the entrepreneur on track going, hey, we're spending too much money here, this is who we need to hire, this is how we need the process to flow. So there's 3 different types of people in your business. And they say if you're going to run a business, you should run it as if it were going to be a franchise. No matter if it's never going to be a franchise, you need to set your business up as if it's a franchise. So I have no intention of ever making GraceBlu a franchise. It's kind of hard in a design world, but it can somewhat be done. I haven't really seen much of it yet, but every business should be, in effect, set up like that. So I love being an entrepreneur. I actually kind of get a kick out of the stress of being an entrepreneur. It's stressful, I'm not going to lie, but my personality is set up for that. And my personality is kind of a little bit of a risk taker. I am not an employee. I learned that teaching. I physically got ill having to get up every single day at the same time, knowing I had to be at the same place every single day for the next 30 years of my life. Now, the funny thing is they say entrepreneurs work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week. So it's true. I work so much more than I would if I were just an employee, but I love what I do so much, guys. It makes me want to do what I do. I have employees that do the design part. They handle a lot of the design. I've actually pulled myself out of the design a little bit. I oversee the design, but I'm also running the business. But in design, let's get back to what you guys are here for. There's so much math involved in interior design, you have no idea. And it cracks me up when people think, oh, I'm not good in math. Well, you might want to think about what you're doing, because you're going to cost me a lot of money if you're not good in math. Let's take an example of, we've designed a room. One, we need to know square footage. You need to know how much flooring is going in this room. I'm just going to give you one room. We design a room. One, you need to know CAD. You need to know how to dimension the room. You need to know inches. You need to know meters. You need to know all of these things. You need to know wall surfaces. So let's say we're going to put stone on a wall surface and you have a room that's 5 feet wide by 10 feet tall ceilings. Well, right there, you can tell me you're calculating how much wall surface or area that is, right? So you need to know square footage of material. Then you need to know that to correspond with your vendor that's going to give you the pricing of that. Then you need to be able to calculate the price of that stone. Maybe it's $4.75 and you need 29 square feet. Boom. You got to be able to figure that out. You have to be able to quickly check, and then you have to be able to put that into proposal format and orders and all of that stuff to send to the client. So much money. That's just a very basic level, but it's really important. Sometimes we don't have time to wait to get the estimate from, let's say, a wallpaper installer. You guys have no idea how complicated wallpaper is. Every wallpaper is sold in a different format, per the roll, per 27 inches, per square foot, per yardage. There's so much math that is involved. Sometimes I'm a visual person, so sometimes I will even sketch it out on the wall and try to figure out how many square feet needs to fill this wall. And then I have to go back and calculate how that roll is sold so that I can actually put it up on the wall. So there's a lot of math involved.